Hey y'all, welcome to Night Shift Delirium, a podcast about junior doctors and the world that surrounds them. I'm your host, Victoria, a junior doctor based in England. On today's episode, we have our youngest guest yet, student Dr. Margaret. We spoke with Margaret the day before she started medical school about her inspiration, hopes, and dreams for her career. It was refreshing to hear from the next generation of doctors, and I'm sure you all will enjoy just as much as I did. Welcome to our shift, y'all. Welcome to Night Shift Delirium. Today we are talking with Margaret as a part of our Stages series. I'm really excited. We haven't really spoken to anyone at her level in medicine. She's our first student doctor. She will be starting medical school tomorrow. So before we begin, Margaret, do you want to introduce yourself?
Thanks for having me on this show, Victoria. So I'm Margaret, as she said. I'm an MS1 now, and I'm starting school at Weill Cornell Medical College in New York City. I went to Duke University for undergrad. I took 2 gap years, and if you can't tell from my accent, I'm Ghanaian. And Victoria is someone I know very personally.
Very personally indeed. Yeah, Margaret is my relative, y'all. I know, it's shocking.
Wow.
Okay, Margaret. So you went to Duke, you took a couple of gap years, but why medicine? How did you end up where you are today?
So the short answer is that I really tried to run away from medicine, but each time it called me back. It pulled me in, and it got to a point I just had to give in to the fact that this is for me. And the long answer was basically that I realized that I've been surrounded by a lot of health problems, not personally, but my family or family friends had different medical issues. So naturally, the hospital didn't scare me. I gravitated towards science. I did well in my STEM classes when I was growing up. So I think slowly but surely people were nudging me in that direction. I'd say 2 people who were really nudging me in that direction, who happen to be doctors now, are the host of the show and my other cousin who's also a doctor. And I think that when you have these subtle influences in your life, you eventually lean towards that kind of path. But yeah, I think medicine, eventually I came to realize that I like medicine for the versatility that it gives. There's a lot of creativity involved. I think that's what people mix up or are a bit confused on, that medicine is just about sciences or like cells and, I don't know, chemical reactions. But it's not that. It's really looking at a problem and thinking of different ways to fix it, because you have to keep learning all the time till you retire, after you retire. So that was very, challenging. And my friends know that I like a challenge. So I just like to prove people wrong. So I don't know. So yeah, I'm here. I'm here now.
I mean, I must say, I'm obviously very excited about the fact that, I always say I ended up in medicine through successful brainwashing. And it's only right that I pass the baton on to,
Oh,
the next
gosh.
generation.
You're funny.
Okay. Well, I mean, you've kind of already answered my next question, but it was, do you have any role models or people who inspired you to pursue medicine, or even importantly, people who have given you an idea of the kind of doctor that you want to be?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that obviously the first doctor I knew was my uncle. And then my cousin became a doctor, and she used to take me to the hospital, like when I was on breaks and things. And then obviously Victoria became a doctor. So these are the closest family members I have that are doctors. But in terms of like being inspired to come back to medicine, I think it was seeing female doctors. I ended up doing my thesis on female physicians, and I think it really made me appreciate being a minority in medicine. And, like being Black and female alone, it's like double trouble. So just seeing, all these super women being able to do it was just this beautiful story to me. And I think a part of me wanted to, become that superhero myself. So I don't have I don't want to say I have a specific person, but I always look out for female physicians. I think that women have supported me so much in my life. And yeah, it's mainly women. That's why, yeah, I'm in medicine.
I love that. That's really interesting. I never knew that. And it is so true because when you are a junior or like a student and you see these like powerhouses,
Mm-hmm.
yes, women in general tend to like occupy that space where, and I'm not saying that men don't occupy that same sort of energy, but it's a lot less special if we're honest,
Mm-hmm.
because that is just the default for men in many ways. So
Mm-hmm.
when you see these powerhouses who are in medicine, there it's very rare for you to
Mm-hmm.
come across a woman, and especially a Black woman,
Mm-hmm.
who is not like, who doesn't have a presence and an aura that you're like, oh my gosh, she knows her
Mm-hmm.
stuff, she's on point. And obviously, I think that's in many ways a consequence of a society that says you have to be three times as good as, the white male. But it is inspiring, and I love that. I didn't know that about you.
I mean, I think it's interesting that, you bring up the powerhouse, this woman, this macho woman, who has it all, in relation to the white man, because I've worked in the past, in a space that had a white man and a woman of color, both doctors. And it was still inspiring because even though she wasn't the typical powerhouse, she wasn't really on point in that sense. She wasn't an all-rounder. She was very vocal about her struggles, getting into med school, getting into residency, all of that. But I think it's the resilience that did it for me. It's the resilience for me. And I think that's something, and doing it with confidence, just taking in the struggle with confidence and keep like being able to push despite all these obstacles and being told no over and over again. And I think her resilience is something that showed me that, that's another aspect of women in medicine that really appeals to me, because you don't have to be boisterous or overly confident or have a great personality, because she wasn't that. But she definitely really had the resilience. And I think that being resilient allowed her to be adaptable. And that really propelled her through to wherever she is now.
Yes, absolutely. And I will say, when I speak about powerhouses, I think of vulnerability as one of the most important parts of being a powerhouse, and like being on top of your stuff, because there's so much strength in that. And I
Mm-hmm.
think sometimes people feel they have to be perfect, or they have to have the most linear journey, or the most I don't know, top of their class and this and that. And that's
Mm-hmm.
really not what is required to be a good doctor. In fact, in many ways, not having those things
Mm-hmm.
makes you the better doctor, because you've seen the struggle, you've gone, you can empathize more, you have a little bit more life
Exactly.
experience. Not to say that those other people don't have those things, but in general, um, a powerhouse definitely feels and struggles and fights, and it's exactly what you said. The resilience is what makes the difference. So, you're starting orientation tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
How are you feeling right now about that?
I'm exhausted. I'm very exhausted. And I think that I'm very grateful, but I'm also exhausted. Thankfully, I'm not scared to start school. I don't really have the anxiety, or maybe I'm just saying that now because I actually haven't started. But I, yeah, I'm just tired. I'm trying to prepare myself mentally to start, because it takes a lot to move in.
Yeah. You have also just moved into your new place of residence, which has been an experience. Um So, but like in terms of, do you feel like, you know what, finally this is happening, or does it just kind of feel like another day?
Let me just backtrack to like a week ago or 2 weeks ago when my school finally started sending us information. Um, I think that when those emails started coming in, it really did feel like, wow, it's actually happening. It's finally starting, it's like everything happens so quickly, so quickly. You apply to school, you pick your schools, you wait, you keep waiting and waiting and waiting, and it's like, okay, now you're done waiting, you have somewhere to go to. But then it hits you, it's like, okay, this is actually starting, my life is going to be different, things are changing. I am going back to school. Obviously, people who care about you will try and sympathize by commenting. And people are like, oh, you're going to be a different person, or wow, you're not going to have enough free time, or just basically everyone is throwing their visions at you. It's like, what do you call those things? It's like a fast shooter. And yeah, all of that's overwhelming, the comments, the suggestions, but I'm just taking it one day at a time to see where we go.
Yeah. And we actually haven't really spoken very much about your undergrad and your gap year. Um, can you tell us just very quickly sort of what your undergrad was in
Mm-hmm.
and how it prepared you for medical school? For the people who are listening and who aren't familiar with the difference between UK, US, we've spoken about it at great length many times. In the US, you have to complete a bachelor's degree and take a series of what we call pre-med courses, which includes chemistry, biology, physics, a math course, and like a biochemistry course or something like that. So you can major in anything. And some places allow you to have even more freedom with your degree, which I think is quite unique. So can you tell us about your experience at Duke?
Yeah. So I ended up creating my own major at Duke. And Duke has a program called Program 2, and you basically apply for it. You put together a proposal um, to defend your proposed major, basically. And so let me actually backtrack. So I was the kind of student that came in freshman year that I just want to do biology. If I'm trying to feel special, I'll throw in a global health because after all, I'm an international student, non-international student. So let me just do that to be different or feel special. And then what started as a joke, me actually laughing at someone who wanted to create their own major, ended up inspiring me to do my own major because she basically threw the question back at me, okay, so what will you do? And then I gave my elevator pitch, and she was like, I think you should actually do this because it came to you so easily. So then I started looking into it. I wanted to combine things that I liked, which was like arts, but also health. And it involved a lot of research, but I put some stuff together. I found people who were willing to help me, and Duke made it possible. So that was it. But it was such a great experience. The flexibility is so key to, training your mind and train yourself to become a lifelong learner because you're actively doing things. You're taking charge of the knowledge that you consume, the information that you put out into the world. It's no longer about just like someone is teaching you. You are the one who has to teach other people. So luckily for me, I was able to do like sciences, looking at like neuroscience and psychology, looking at how like the arts and creativity impacts the brain and body. And then also looking at like the humanities and social sciences, how are we using creativity in like the healthcare ecosystem, the business world of healthcare, are they using certain colors? What's the language that they're using to, big pharma is using to get people to buy certain drugs, things like that. So it was just very interesting. I was learning so much. I didn't feel like I liked all my classes, but I still had to take my pre-med classes, just FYI. But those additional classes were like my refuge because I chose those classes that I wanted to, be in them. I wanted to learn from them. And I think it was very helpful in my medical school application process because I could speak to certain things that even some of the people who were interviewing me had never heard of, but was still relevant to medicine. But if you have the opportunity to do an individualized major and you're passionate about something, please do it. Like, it's the best thing you can do for yourself.
Yeah, your undergraduate experience is so impressive. And I know a lot of people say those things and throw a lot of accolades, but it really is very unique to find young people who are able to guide their own like career and really like we all have interests in things, but how many people actually like put pen to paper and apply it towards something like an entire degree. So I think it's really, really interesting. Red flags of med school.
Honestly, the material wasn't that difficult to understand.
Listen, you're in medical school. The information is more detailed than it's ever been. It's not meant to be easy. Make sure you know and understand at the level of detail that is required before moving on to the next topic.
I heard whichever class or professor isn't that tough.
The biggest mistake you can make in medical school, and really in medicine overall, is to rely on someone else's assessment. Go to class or your rotation with an open mind and be ready for your own unique impression.
I literally haven't studied at all.
Ring the alarm. The biggest red flag of them all. Medics notoriously understate how much they study and prepare. I'm unclear why. Maybe it has to do with years of fighting the titles of being a nerd or book long, as some say. Either way, don't get caught up in this fallacy and get left behind. Also, don't put forth this tired rhetoric. You are in medical school. One day, sooner than you realize, someone will expect you to save their life. You should be proud of the work it takes to acquire that knowledge. Trust me, no one wants the colleague or a physician who never studied at all. Okay, so what does it mean to be a doctor to you?
Ooh. Okay, so I was recently in Ghana and I had to deal with the healthcare system a lot. And I think it really helped me to define, I think I actually wrote it down in my journal, what kind of doctor I want to be. And I realized that a doctor should make people feel good about themselves. They should feel good, and your patient should leave you feeling good, even if their disease remains, or even if they're still dealing with some kind of adversity. They should feel better leaving you. And I think that that's something that many healthcare spaces lack because it's become mainly about the treatment of disease, treatment of disease. Let me just alleviate the illness. Let me alleviate the symptom, as opposed to how is this person's overall being before and after they came to me. And so I think for me, a doctor is someone who should positively influence or impact their patient's well-being, and that's a huge range. It literally how they're feeling physically, emotionally, mentally, but there needs to be that change. Someone shouldn't come to you, someone shouldn't leave you worse than they came.
Very, very good. I hope that you keep that with you, that idea about goals of treatment and goals of your care, even more importantly than goals of treatment. In an episode that will come out, I had an interview with Dorothy, and we were speaking about grief, and we were speaking about what it means to be a doctor, and for me, how it has affected me is I really want to make sure that patients have an understanding of what that is. And it goes towards the idea of you have more patient satisfaction, you have more family satisfaction.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's what everyone says when they're talking about collaborative care between the patient
Mm-hmm.
and between the doctor. But, I look at medicine now as my goal of treatment and my goal of care is to optimize a patient's life to the best of my ability and the
Mm-hmm.
best of their vessel, their body's ability,
Mm-hmm.
and we just don't think about the holistic care. We get run down with lists of to-dos, and
Mm-hmm.
it's so easy to forget that. But I think if you keep those sort of principles with you, you'll go far. So, what are you looking forward to the most in medical school?
Um, Honestly, I think this might be too nerdy or like too school focused, but I think just finding my own flow and finding out what works for me early. Because I know that can really avoid a lot of stress, because it's such a huge learning curve, but eventually you figure it out. But are you figuring it out third year? Or you're figuring it out at the end of first semester? And I'm praying that I can, figure what works for me quickly. So maybe like right now, like that's what I'm thinking of. But besides that, I think also to just finding that specialty that calls me, like this just long term. Finding like I wanted to choose me. I have some things in mind, but I wanted to choose me.
Okay, fair enough. And your whatever works for you, what works in, biochemistry might not work in, I don't know, neurology, and it
Mm-hmm.
is really a never-ending um journey in figuring out what works for you and for what particular task. But you are up to it. Obviously, you wouldn't be there if you weren't. What are you least looking forward to, I should say?
I think the time sacrifice, meaning like knowing that I'll have to miss out on some things.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's the reality. You've seen it so many
Mm-hmm.
times.
Yeah.
Okay. So, even speaking in terms of your major, there's such a distinct difference between like my generation and your generation and
Mm-hmm.
the opportunities that you have and generations prior who only could do biology. When I was in college, it was a big deal that I was doing psych,
Yeah.
and global health, and people didn't understand that, which obviously became an asset later on.
Mm-hmm.
But now, your generation, some universities are allowing you to design
Mm-hmm.
your own thing. And I think your generation in general is more vocal, which might be because of, TikTok and Twitter and all of these things. Everyone has a page. And I don't know, how do you think that is going to affect medicine in the future, if at all?
Yeah, no, I think it's already um impacting the field positively already, because we're thinking outside the box. I think that the openness to discuss has even brought visibility to aspects of medicine like mental health. And even using mental health as an example, it's so subjective that you need to constantly think differently, think creatively. You really need to you really need all hands on deck, um and I think medicine is no longer isolated. And so you need people who know how to relate to other fields, because whether or not we like it, medicine is a business. Whether or not we like it, medicine is a social ecosystem, you know, and it intricately intertwines with politics or economics and sociology, just all these things, history. And so I think many schools have realized that it is in their best interest, should they want to maintain their reputation, to find more students who are willing to think outside the box or who are willing to take chances. Well, at least that's what it seemed during my interview, some of my interview days. Like that's what schools were looking out for, because the world is changing and you have to keep up. So I feel like med schools, hospitals, all these different health spaces, everyone is just trying to stay relevant and keep up and also just shine.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you. And I think also your generation is really connecting with people in a way that previous generations have not. And not that, there hasn't been improvement from 1950 till now, but even looking online, people are trying to find different ways to stand out and make their, Instagram presence a thing, but then they're explaining things, people now who don't have access to healthcare, don't trust healthcare, but trust social media.
Yeah.
That's another issue. They're now seeing actual doctors instead of someone in their basement, So I think it's a good thing. I'm excited to see where it goes.
I think so. I think one more thing that is so crucial is that people want to relate to the people that are taking care of them. And if, back in the day, it was just like, it's the same type of person. But people don't just want you to, give me a shot or just tell me go and take these pills. They want to have a conversation. They want you to really understand their life experiences. And I think I think patients also voicing out their concerns and frustrations. And this is seen in different ways through protests, lobbying at Congress and things, like everyone has seen that patients have power and the patients are demanding for a diverse set of health workers. So I think that's one thing that's really pushed medicine into, a different trajectory that I hope people will keep embracing, but people have negative things to say about where medicine is going. So we'll see.
Yes, we will. And I think there's always going to be a hater. And, anyway, just let them deal with that. Okay. Well, Margaret, I'm not going to keep you too long because I know that tomorrow is the start of a big day. Although obviously, as many things as people have put onto you, you're doing the right thing. One step at a time, you'll be fine. My last question for you. Season 2 is seemingly more of a musical season. So give me your theme song for this moment. For tomorrow, you're walking into orientation, people are like, who is this gorgeous girl? And you're like, yes, it's me, student Dr. Margaret. What is your theme song?
Wow. I mean, you really caught me off guard. Let me just go through my Spotify real quick and see what I can find. I'm trying to decide, should I go with gospel? Should I go with Afrobeat? Should I go with like a Jasmine Sullivan kind of situation? Okay, you know what? I don't think this will be like my real answer if I had like 2 days to really take my time. But this Ghanaian Olympian actually used it as like her mantra. And I think it was perfect. And I'm tapping into her energy. So I would say We're Taken Over by Shatawale. Yeah.
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah.
Of that.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. And I think that I'll choose that because sometimes you really have to psych yourself up. It's very easy to doubt yourself if you can sense other people doubting you, but you really have to tell yourself that I know I'm good, or I know like I can do this. And yeah, I think personally that helped me for my second application.
Excellent. Okay. Do you have any social media that you want people to follow you on?
Yeah. So you can follow me on LinkedIn. That's where you learn about me with medicine. And it's just my name, Margaret Darko or Darko for spelling purposes. Yeah, if you want to see my creative side too, you can follow me on Instagram at mvdarko. Those are my two main social medias. Oh, you can follow my Twitter too. That's very medicine heavy. And it's at Dr. Darko, Daktar Darko.
Excellent. Thank you so much for joining us on Night Shift Delirium.
Thanks so much for having me. This is such an amazing show. And I know it's inspiring a lot of people out there. And I'm very excited for this, brand and, all these different things that are yet to come. So I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much, Margaret. I hope you all enjoyed this episode and learned from Margaret's unique perspective. I certainly did. If you are enjoying Delirium so far, please share, like, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Follow Margaret on LinkedIn at Margaret Darko for spelling purposes, on Instagram at mvdarko, and on Twitter at Dr. Darko. All of her handles will be in the show notes. Follow Delirium on Instagram at Night Shift Delirium and on Twitter at Delirium Shift. Our next episode will be focused on the intersection of grief in medicine as I'm joined in conversation by Dorothy. If you're interested in getting merchandise, some t-shirts from the first drop still do remain, so please go to amissascloset.com, AMISSASCLOSET.com to get yours. See you on our next shift.
Let me just tap myself on the back and just get ready for tomorrow.
I can't even.
No, tomorrow is just orientation. That's the only thing that's... A question. Is this a theme?
Yes, the theme today is stages.
Just so I know what to give you.